He declared bankruptcy 6 times, yet still became a billionaire. He lost hundreds of millions in business, but won the White House. Everyone knows his name, but almost no one knows his story. How did Donald Trump turn failures into gold? Make yourself comfortable, you're about to find out. Childhood and the influence of Fred Trump. Donald Trump was born on June 14, 1946, in the least glamorous part of his future empire, yours, Queens. If Manhattan is all about shiny skyscrapers, then Queens of those years was all about 2-story houses and front yards. However, the house where Donald grew up with his brothers had 23 rooms. The facade was adorned with white columns, and above the front door was the family crest. Their nest was considered the largest house in the New York suburbs. His father, Fred Trump, was already a millionaire at that time. He built affordable housing for workers and firmly believed in 3 things: discipline, thrift, and the power of real estate. He instilled these principles into his children's heads from a young age. Fred was a strict teacher. In the summer, Donald and his brothers carried bricks at their father's construction sites, painted fences, and collected bottles for recycling. However, on Sundays, the family would go to see the luxurious New York skyscrapers. It was then that the boy dreamed of building something grand. Little Donald grew up to be a noisy and stubborn boy. At 13, his parents sent him to the New York Military Academy. Not because of bad behavior, but because they believed the military would make a man out of him. And they were not mistaken. The military boarding school was not a playground for Donald. It was here that he realized he could be severely punished and even beaten if he misbehaved. The harsh conditions of the academy taught Donnie that regardless of the intensity of suffering, one must continue and prevail. He rose to the rank of captain, wore a military uniform, and even participated in field exercises. Afterwards, there was Fordham University, but after 2 years, Donald transferred to the prestigious Wharton School of Business. It was here that his main trait emerged, the ability to use his father's connections while still forging his own path. Even then, he dreamed of fame and luxury. An interesting fact, since Donald graduated from the military academy, he was supposed to participate in the Vietnam War. But first, he received a deferment for his studies, 4 deferments to be exact, and then a medical exemption due to bone spurs on his heels. Critics later sniped that a wealthy daddy saved his son from the front. But Trump himself always claimed that he would have served with honor. Fred Trump died in 1999, leaving his son about $40 million. But the main inheritance was not in money. He taught Donald toughness, perseverance, and how to turn every dollar into 10. However, the son went further than the father. Instead of modest homes for workers, he built golden skyscrapers for millionaires. The first major deal was Swifton Village. But Donald didn't start with that. Trump at 25 was not yet the loud character everyone knows today. Still without golden elevators, without candidacy, and without Twitter scandals, but already with ambitions that don't fit within the state of New York. He needs something of his own, big, and preferably profitable. His father gives him a starting capital of $200,000. By Trump family standards, not that much, but not pennies either. A sort of test. Show what you're capable of. And if he fails, well, then it's just not meant to be for him to be rich. But Donald is not one to fail. And so he finds his first serious project in the Swifton Village residential complex in Cincinnati, Ohio. The place, to put it mildly, is not the most glamorous. If you imagine a typical rundown neighborhood with half-empty houses, leaking roofs, and tenants who last paid rent back during Nixon's time, this is it. But Trump saw an opportunity in this chaos. First of all, the price. The complex costs $6 million, but he doesn't plan to pay the entire amount out of his own pocket. Why do that when there are loans? Secondly, the potential. Yes, right now it's a dump. But if everything is put in order, it can either be sold for more or provide a steady rental income. Trump isn't just investing money in repairs, he's acting shrewdly. Instead of doing a complete overhaul everywhere, he focuses on what catches the eye. Entrances are painted, signs are changed, and the yard is tidied up somewhat. Everything that isn't visible at first glance remains as it is. Why overpay? Then the most important thing, the tenants. Trump understands that the main problem with Swifton Village isn't the leaky pipes, but the undisciplined residents. He tightens the rules, evicts those who don't pay, and gradually fills the complex with more solvent people. 2 years pass, and the complex is unrecognizable. Yes, it's still not luxury housing, but now it's at least a decent place where people are willing to pay rent. And then Trump does what he does best. He sells. In 1977, Swifton Village goes under the hammer for $12 million. The profit is $6 million, of which Donald takes about $500,000 for himself. For a young guy just starting out, this is a significant success. But more importantly, it's a lesson. The first lesson is that money can be made even from what others consider junk. The second lesson is that loans are your best friends if you know how to use them. And the third most important is presentation. Even the simplest thing can look expensive if packaged correctly. Swifton Village became a springboard for Trump. Now he knows he can make big money, and he's already looking at Manhattan. The creation of the Trump brand, Manhattan real estate. In the 70s, New York is far from the chic city we know today. The city is on the brink of bankruptcy, the streets are dirty, crime is rampant, and real estate consists of either old dilapidated buildings into risky projects that no one believes in. The perfect time for an adventurer. Trump starts by looking for profitable plots. His goal is not just to buy a building, but to create something grand that will bring him not only money, but also fame. The first major purchase is the old Commodore Hotel next to Grand Central Station. The location, to put it mildly, is not the most glamorous. The hotel looks as if it was last renovated before World War II. But Trump sees potential. Grand Central is thousands of people daily, which means if something cool is done here, success is guaranteed. The problem is, he doesn't have the money. Or rather, he does, but not in the amount needed to just go and buy the hotel. But Donald is not one of those people who let that stop them. He goes to the city authorities and proposes a deal. He will take on the reconstruction and they will give him tax breaks. The officials are shocked. The city is in crisis, and here comes some young guy from Queens offering to invest millions in a wreck. But Trump knows how to persuade. He paints them a picture of the future, a luxurious hotel, which will become a symbol of New York's revival. Then the most difficult part begins, finding the money for the reconstruction. Bankers look at Trump like he's crazy. Who in their right mind would invest millions in a semi-ruined building in a crime-ridden area? But Donald once again shows his talent for selling dreams. He persuades the Hyatt chain to become his partner, convinces bankers to give a loan, and eventually gathers the necessary amount. The construction doesn't go without issues. The budget increases, deadlines are missed, contractors are nervous, but Trump does not back down. He personally oversees every stage, demanding that everything be done perfectly. And in 1980, the hotel opens under the new name Grand Hyatt. It was not just a successful deal, it was a triumph that changed all perceptions of what New York could be. The hotel, which just a couple of years ago was a disgrace to the area, now gleamed with mirrored glass and attracted crowds of guests. Rooms were booked months in advance, and the restaurants became trendy spots for business elite gatherings. And Trump himself overnight transformed from a promising developer into the main revitalizer of Manhattan. Donald first tasted true fame when journalists unanimously called him the savior of New York, l'homme de Dieu. And even though the city was still drowning in debt and garbage, one of its corners was already shining, thanks to his persistence and cunning, and the boundless audacity of one man. And this was just the beginning. The Grand Hyatt brought not only profit, but also invaluable experience. Trump realized that his main asset was not money, but the ability to make others believe in his dream. And now, with newfound confidence, he conceived a project that would forever etch his name in history. The legendary Trump Tower? Trump Tower? A symbol of success? In the early 80s, Trump set his sights on a plot on Fifth Avenue, the most prestigious address in New York, There's just one small problem. An old 11-story Bonwit Teller department store already stands on this site. But for Donald, this is not an obstacle but an opportunity. He buys the building for a laughable $25 million by Manhattan standards and demolishes it completely. The construction begins with a grand scandal. To make room for the future skyscraper, Trump orders the destruction of the relief decorations from the facade of 1929. The public is furious, art experts are in tears, but Donald just shrugs as if to say, beauty is when there is gold and marble and everything else is old junk. The architects are tasked with creating not just an office center, but a vertical city for the wealthiest people on the planet. 68 floors of pink, marble, mirrored glass, and gilding. Elevators with waterfalls, an atrium as tall as a 5-story building. And most importantly, huge letters, Trump on the facade, so that even a blind person would know whose creation it is. The financing of the project is a separate comedy. Trump, as usual, is playing his favorite game, other people's money. He convinces bankers that this will be the most expensive building in New York City's history, even though there's only a pit so far. He persuades future tenants to buy spaces that don't even exist yet. And the funniest part is, it works for him again. The construction proceeds with the typical Trump-style adventures. The police stopped the work several times. Sometimes it's Polish workers without documents, sometimes it's a violation of safety regulations. The budget grows faster than the floors, but in '83, a miracle happens. Trump Tower is ceremoniously open, and what do you think? It's an instant success. Apartments are sold for millions, even though the prices are 3 times inflated. The shops on the first floors pay exorbitant rent. Even skeptics admit, Matskon Tabokid, yes, it's tasteless, but damn impressive. And the most important thing is, now every tourist walking along Fifth Avenue definitely takes a photo in front of this golden box. Trump Tower becomes not just a building, it's the materialized ego of Donald Trump. Here is his office. His celebrity friends and enemies live here. Movies and music videos are filmed here. The secret to success is simple. Trump realized that the wealthy are willing to pay not for square meters, but for the opportunity to say, I live in Trump Tower. What's the pool sporty? Why eat in pool? D. It's status, it's showmanship, it's a ticket to the club of the elite. And while some criticize him for tastelessness, others are happily shelling out millions for the right to be part of this fairy tale. Casinos and gambling, Atlantic City. By the early 80s, Donald Trump was already the king of New York real estate, but that seemed insufficient to him. He wanted new heights, new risks, and of course, new money. And then his gaze fell on Atlantic City, a city that was trying at the time to become the American Las Vegas, a place where you could legally gamble in casinos. The perfect springboard for a new conquest. And next, Atlantic City in those years was a sad sight. Once luxurious, the resort had now turned into a dreary town with shabby hotels and half-empty beaches. The New Jersey authorities desperately tried to revive it by allowing gambling, but so far nothing good had come of it. Trump, however, saw an opportunity in this chaos. He understood that people were willing to go anywhere if offered enough glamour and entertainment. And he decided to build not just a casino, but an entire gambling empire under his name. The first step was to obtain a license. This turned out to be not so easy. The Gambling Commission was suspicious towards the New York upstart. But Trump, as always, found a way. He hired the best lobbyists, promised thousands of jobs, and eventually obtained the coveted permission. The construction of the first casino, Trump Plaza, began in the year 982nd. The project was ambitious, a luxurious building with gaming halls, restaurants, and a concert hall. The first few months were successful. Crowds of visitors, big wins, and enthusiastic articles in the press. But then problems began. It turned out that managing a casino is not the same as building skyscrapers. The staff was stealing, competitors were luring away clients, and debts continued to grow. Despite the difficulties, Trump did not give up. In 1989, he opened a second casino, Trump Castle. And a year later, he bought the largest hotel casino in the city, the Taj Mahal, paying an astronomical $950 million for it. The Taj Mahal was supposed to be the crown jewel of his empire, the largest and most luxurious casino in the world. Thousands of guests, including celebrities, attended the opening, but the celebration quickly ended. Enormous debts, high interest rates, and fierce competition led to the casino being on the brink of bankruptcy within a year. In the following years, the financial problems only worsened. Trump had to give up half of his stake in the Taj Mahal to creditors, and then completely relinquish control over his casinos. By the early 2000s, his gambling empire collapsed, leaving behind mountains of debt and numerous lawsuits. But even this failure, Donald managed to turn into a victory. He managed to keep his name on the casino buildings, continuing to receive money for the use of the brand. And when all 3 casinos finally went bankrupt, he blamed poor management and an unfavorable economic situation. The story with the Atlantic City casino showed 2 things. First, even Trump couldn't always win. Second, he was a master at coming out unscathed, saving face and his reputation. This experience toughened him and prepared him for new, even more grandiose ventures. After all, television, politics, and the most incredible rise in his career awaited him, the presidency of the United States. Bankruptcy and comeback. Trump always appeared as a winner, but his path to success resembled a roller coaster, dizzying. Highs were followed by resounding lows. However, it was during times of crisis that he demonstrated his main superpower, turning defeats into new opportunities. The game of bankruptcy became a special form of art for him. In the early 90s, Trump's empire was falling apart. His casinos in Atlantic City were sinking. In debt, skyscrapers were empty, and personal liabilities reached $900 million. The situation seemed hopeless, but Donald found an unconventional move. He acknowledged the problems. Yes, instead of hiding the difficulties, he brought them to the forefront, making them part of his image. The first corporate bankruptcy occurred in the year 1991. Trump Taj Mahal, his flagship casino, could not service a $3 billion debt. An ordinary businessman would have ended his career there, but Trump took a different path. He convinced the creditors that without him, the casino would completely collapse, and he made a deal. He gave up half of the shares but retained control and a $50 million salary per year. A brilliant move, in a way, to fail the business and remain at the helm. The next 5 years became a true marathon of bankruptcies. Trump Plaza Hotel, Trump Castle Casino, even his beloved Boeing 727, everything went under the hammer. But here another remarkable trait of Trump emerged, the ability to shift losses onto others. When his company, Trump Hotels and Casino Resorts, was once again on the brink of collapse in the 2000s, he came out unscathed, leaving investors with losses of $440 million, while securing for himself the right to manage the business and million-dollar bonuses. The secret to his resilience lay in 3 rules. First, never invest all your money. Second, draft contracts in such a way that the responsibility falls on the companies, not on him personally. Third, always keep an ace up your sleeve. The right to use his name, which remained a valuable asset even in the darkest times. After each downfall, Trump returned with new projects. In the 90s, when everyone considered him a washed-up pilot, he unexpectedly shifted to building luxury residential towers in New York. Trump World Tower at the UN, Trump Place on the waterfront. These projects restored his status as the king of real estate. He also discovered a gold mine, though licensing his name. Now Trump was emblazoned on water bottles, ties, even board games. By the 2000s, he was back on top, although his methods raised questions. When the construction of Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago stalled, he simply sold the project, leaving all the problems to the new owners. And when Trump University was accused of fraud, he paid $25 million in settlements and carried on as if nothing had happened. Financial experts still debate, is Trump a genius or just lucky? 6. Corporate bankruptcies. That's a record that would break anyone. But Donald not only survived, he became stronger each time. His secret is simple. He understood that in modern business, it's not about how much you lost, but how you present it. And in this, he was a true master. These crises hardened him and prepared him for the main adventure of his life, the presidential race. After all, what is politics if not another risky business where you can wager everything except your own name? But that's a completely different story. So, what have we learned from this story? Money loves noise. You can build skyscrapers, casinos, or even a presidential campaign. The main thing is to have your name everywhere, preferably in golden letters. Bankruptcy is not the end, but a PR move. Fell 6 times? No problem. The main thing is to get up each time with a new scandal, and even more self-confidence. Dad taught him to save, but Donald chose to spend, though in such a way so brightly that these expenses turned into investments, even bankruptcies. Trump proved success is not just numbers in an account, but also the ability to sell your legend, even if that legend sometimes resembles a cheap reality show. Moral, want to get rich? Start with self-confidence, add a pinch of adventurism, and never admit defeat. And also don't forget to give credit to others' work. Make sure to like and subscribe.